Good morning, everybody. Is the mic on? Yes. We've got 5 minutes to go. Anyway, good morning, everybody. We've got a great panel here from everybody. I think I'm in the middle. And I just, the conversation was really around mobile matters. Does mobile matter? To be honest, do we still ask that question? How many of you in the audience don't have a mobile phone? So basically, everybody's got a mobile phone. In fact, how many of you have apps on your mobile phone? Come on, only that few? How many of you don't have apps on your phone? So everybody's got apps on their phone. How many of you have data packages associated with your phone? How many of you don't have data? I should actually ask the negative. How many of you don't have data packages? So basically, all of you surf the web, use apps, and download. And I think that's what the conversation will be around here. And if I can get a picture up, I took a picture first thing yesterday morning. I don't know if you can see that, but basically it was at the back. There was a whole row of us in the back, and everybody was there either updating their Twitter, downloading the Mobile Roadie app if you haven't already downloaded it for Music Matters, or just blogging or reading email or doing whatever. So I think it's a great opportunity to be up here, thanks to MEF. A lot of us here are from MEF or engaged with MEF as well, which is the Mobile Entertainment Forum. But we've got Lauren Schuster, who's the VP of Consumer Marketing from Singtel here in Singapore. Colin Miles, who runs iPop, which is a content aggregator and helps a lot of the content providers collect their money across the region. Got Ralph Simon. I don't think I need to say much about Ralph, but sort of known as the godfather of the ringtone business. We've got Jörg Kronert, who enables brands to go onto mobile and rapidly create and deploy mobile websites. And we've got Stephen Goh, who runs one of the world's leading mobile social networks, in essence. So I think that's sort of the panel. What I'm going to try and do is keep open have 38-minute conversation between us, and then open it up for Q&A sort of after that. And if you have any questions, please write them down and keep them available. I'll start over on my far right with Lauren, sort of VP Marketing. The theme of the event is sort of the transportation or the portability of content across multiple devices. And I think at Singtel, you've got IPTV services, mobile services, fixed line services, DSL services, et cetera, et cetera. How do you deal with the transportation and the portability of content across? Can you share some insight?
Sure. Thanks, Stefan. Well, first of all, it's great to be here, and it's great to be on this panel with some old friends, some very old friends, and some new friends. So this is a great opportunity for me and for Singtel, so thank you very much. So as Stefan was saying, clearly Singtel is in a unique position in terms of owning multiple platforms. So we've got Mio TV, which is an IPTV platform reaching about 300,000 households, so about 1/4 of households in the Singapore market. We've got postpaid platform reaching about 1.7 million people in the Singapore market, and then of course we've got fixed broadband and fiber reaching about 500,000 households. So that gives us a very unique opportunity to provide solutions across multiple platforms. So it's actually, that's the nature of what we do. And just to call out a few examples, if you look at some of our bigger properties like Formula One, and I saw there's a simulator out there, so I encourage you to take it for a spin, literally. And BPL, so the Premier League. So obviously those are two critical properties that we license initially for Mio TV, for the IPTV service. But as from the very inception of those deals for those major content rights, we looked at cross-platform exploitation, and we developed a whole range of services for both fixed broadband. So if you look at our fixed platform, we offer Mio Stadium, which offers a range of content and clips and live viewing of the Premier League. And then more importantly, since we're talking about mobile here, is looking at how we've been able to capitalize and port that content onto mobile. And we've got, for F1 last year and for F1 this year, we have created a unique F1 application which takes advantage of our location-based services, our music services. So we've got AMP service. We know which artists are lined up. Lincoln Park, for example, is going to be playing at the event this year, so we'll be promoting Lincoln Park content via the F1 app on your mobile device. And we've also implemented a whole range of augmented reality solutions as well. So last year, one of the big and most exciting parts of the F1, besides the race itself, are, for many, they tend to be middle-aged men, but the grid girls, the 50 or so grid girls who we select from the Singapore population, and there was an augmented reality app that enabled you to take a picture with any of the grid girls and get her bio and her likes and her dislikes, and then to post that and obviously share that. And then if you look at the BPL content, we've also created a BPL application that allows you to view the clips post-game, the scores, naturally all the statistics, but also a betting calculator and the odds. So it's about providing different aspects of the property across different platforms, and mobile continues to be at the center of all of our content acquisitions. And we look at all the platforms as essential to bringing those content experiences alive.
So that's one of the things that's always sort of come up over these last couple of years in conferences, and have you seen it evolve, which is around the rights of content. So if you've got the TV rights, for example, for BPL, does that automatically transpond onto the mobile? Do you have to renegotiate to extend onto the mobile? And then the iPad comes along, and all of a sudden the iPad's not included in mobile. Has that evolved over the last couple of years? Have you seen that evolve in your experience?
Well, I think it's evolving slowly. It's still a very painful experience. So, being part of the value chain that is acquiring content rights from content owners, I've been on the other side as well, so I could empathize with both sides. But it's still a struggle. So we're still very limited in terms of our content rights for what we could do on mobile and what we cannot. And we have a lot of fantastic ideas in terms of creating engaged experiences on mobile or on tablets, but then we face issues with the rights owners in terms of either requiring new licensing rights, which means paying more money, and very often a significant amount of money relative to the opportunity, because it's still an evolving one. Or sometimes the rights owners don't even have the current rights structures in place to offer those rights, and obviously that impedes the development of mobile and tablet exploitation of rights.
So Ralph, you spend a lot of time in LA and London and with a lot of the brands and content creators. Are you seeing a change from in LA and in a lot of the content creation environments in terms of how to adopt for this new digital cloud-based environment?
Well, of course, rights in this area have been an issue over the last 15 years. It is becoming slightly easier, better. One of the big things for those of you working in this part of the world trying to get these rights is who you actually go and deal with that has control of the rights. If you're working with major recording artists, like for example, let's say you wanted to do something with Lincoln Park, sometimes it's easier to have the negotiation directly with the manager of the talent or the agent of the talent. It's the record companies that can be difficult, but most of the time they're very professional. One of the things that is not generally recognized is that when you are working with the music companies, you have to get the rights for the publishing as well as for the master recording. And in Asia, and particularly the Hong Kong market and certainly large parts of Asia, the publishing issues are still need to be streamlined, because that is something that slows down the entire process. Of course, the payment for using the talent can be significant, unless you're working with interesting people. Like, for example, I'm pleased to work with Lady Gaga, and she really made world headlines yesterday by crashing the Amazon servers. They sold 350,000 albums for 99 cents as opposed to $11. But she's someone that embraces cross-media, is a very quick decision maker, and sometimes would like to get involved without getting a large amount of money up front, but making sure that she gets a Docomo-style percentage of the net, 91%, rather than a 50-50 deal that is usually the deal with telcos.
So I think that's another point that we had around monetization of the content and the revenue share across the value chain. And there was a panel up there yesterday, I think it was one of the video or TV panels, and it was about a value chain. And there are value chains across all ecosystems or across in every single area, as well as in digital as well. And I think one of the areas that you work with is you're a component of that value chain, trying to reduce the friction across that value chain. Colin, can you share sort of some of your experiences in the monetization capability and collecting the monies for digital content?
Sure. I mean, I think from an MEF perspective, as an association, we look to embrace and work with the entire value chain, and it's fantastic to get a snapshot of the industry. Here we have an incumbent mega operator in Singtel, and at the far end we have Stephen from a social network service, which is one of the most disruptive mobile content engagement platforms I've known, and we're all in the same association, and we're all trying to address these issues of content engagement and monetization. As an aggregator, someone who provides billing services to content providers across Southeast Asia, we are trying to make it as easy as possible for people to pay for content, pay for services, pay for community interaction through the operator billing gateways. We've integrated 69 operator billing gateways, so we are effectively a debit card, if we think of a SIM card as a debit card, a way for people to instantly pay for content on their mobile device. And it's a fascinating development. It's a fast-moving business. We're now seeing that, for example, we talk about multiple screens, web content is now being paid for by mobile devices. People will go to Facebook, they want to unlock a game layer on Facebook, they don't have a credit card, certainly not in Indonesia, they can type in their mobile number, have a charge sent to their phone, unlock the game layer on Facebook. This level of convergence is fast-paced, it's really dynamic, and we're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to pay for content. So effectively, if we look now at all the over-the-top services, services like Google, Android, Market, I think we're saying to them, we have a great way to provide a quick billing solution for people direct to mobile over the top. We're still including the operator. Obviously, the operator takes a cut. We're still working on the margins. But this is the kind of business which is now scaring MasterCard, for example, because they know that if someone like Singtel opens up its gateways at 5% charging, they've got a major competitor for online purchases.
And I think on that note, I'll ask Stephen sort of on some of your experiences. I think, you know, we saw Rob Tersek's presentation yesterday address sort of US, I think, $2 billion virtual good market, $5 billion virtual good worldwide. Sort of from your perspective, I think you've got a big social network, you've got a customer base, you've got a community, and they all purchase virtual goods as well. So how do you go about with monetizing those virtual goods, collecting the money across this value chain that we were just talking about?
I think that there's a general theme in what's going on in social networking, and for our organization, how we think about monetization, and that is that the computing power that is shifting to mobile is allowing people to connect within themselves, as opposed to with the traditional value chain leading up to the network operator. So not only do we give our users the tools to entertain each other and play with each other, and we recently released a series of virtual gifts, including soft poop and hard poop and all that sort of stuff. And it's just absolutely hilarious watching them entertain each other with that, on that basis. But also to form communities of prepaid and solve their own payment solutions, whereupon we end up being just the platform for that. And I think there are some very strong implications then for what does this mean for content providers, network operators, and everyone else in the value chain about where we traditionally think about the delivery of services from high fidelity content solutions or reliable payment solutions is delivered down the channel. And then what happens now when people actually have this amazing computing power amongst themselves, and they're actually recreating new ecosystems amongst themselves. It's sort of a case of not only has the audience, we've given the audience the ability to go and entertain each other and also to pay for each other's solutions. And everyone traditionally in the value chain in the entertainment industry has sort of been, it's just, look, the attention's just moved elsewhere. And I think that's something that we're very conscious of, and something we're excited to be one of the drivers to.
So what you're saying is it's moved more to peer-to-peer sort of communication, interaction versus a one-way dimension, or?
Absolutely. So it's not only just with social networking, that when you actually look at the social networks in Facebook, when you think about Facebook, or in the Chinese case, QQ, in the Japanese case, Gree, Dina, and many other companies, that people now have the tools to entertain each other. You know, Facebook is now taking away attention from other forms of media, certainly across the internet in other forms of media. And what is effectively happening is that people now have a platform to entertain each other. MiG33 has taken that the next step, that not only are they entertaining each other, but they're also solving each other's monetization problems. So it's just stunning. I mean, we get monetization rates in Indonesia of like 5% of active users are paying $2.50 per month. And when you actually compare that to the case for many other social networks, that's actually surprisingly high. That's actually nearly comparable to the Chinese case.
Just to add to that, I think what's really exciting about the MiG33 case is that you start to see consumers and social networks trading currency. And at least from the network operator perspective, outside of the developed markets where we're very accustomed to people having credit cards and people being banked, that's not the situation in markets like Indonesia, India, so on and so forth. And that puts the prepaid ecosystem in a very unique position to provide a tradable currency and a set of credits that can then be used either to buy items, whether it's a virtual good, a real good, or a layer in a game, or to actually trade those credits amongst themselves. So it's, you know, you have a virtual currency that exists in the market today, which is prepaid minutes. And that's something that I believe has yet to be fully exploited across all of these developing markets.
Because not only do you have prepaid minutes, you also have a merchants network out there that can collect on behalf of for those prepaid, and it's combining the two together then, I suppose.
Exactly. And you could then use your base to act as resellers. So we've seen this happen in Africa and in parts of Southeast Asia as well, where any individual can accumulate, you know, their own prepaid credits and then resell them and pass them on to others.
So it's creating a whole new ecosystem of entrepreneurs that are out there trying to monetize minutes and convert that into currency.
Exactly. And as Colin alluded to, you know, Visa and MasterCard are not necessarily well placed to capitalize on that.
So Colin, I'm going to interject here, attention deficit disorder or partial whatever attention. I'm seeing up there a Twitter comment that says you're going to drop the F-bomb on stage today. Do you want to allude to that a bit?
Yes, I've had an ongoing debate with Jay about many different things. One is how to create impact in a panel session where people actually wake up and think about what's being said. And the F word apparently is the key thing to say when you're talking about the situation. And actually it is very appropriate from a MEF perspective. We've actually changed our name. I've got two chairman emeritus here. I'm going to be careful what I say, to just MEF, because we're not saying mobile entertainment anymore, because mobile entertainment is fragged, basically. And for those people who know what fragged is, means, and alludes to, it has been massively fragmented in the last couple of years. My business has seen a huge drop-off in the traditional way of selling mobile entertainment, almost completely eviscerated. There are just very few countries now which sell ringtone content in the same old way as we did 5 years ago. It has changed massively. Everything is over the top, everything is virtual currency, everything is gameplay, everything is impacting the industry. The industry is completely fragged, and we have to run as a ecosystem to capture that lost payment, which has happened a lot of the times to the credit card guys, but the mobile operators really need to move fast to embrace the new ways of selling mobile entertainment. So there you go, I fragged it.
I think on that note, to the MEF sort of comment, and I think one of the things that we're seeing is industries beginning to adopt, and you mentioned the word industry, that actually the industry or the enterprise market beginning to realize and understand the necessity of bringing their brand and customers or product and service, to customers using mobile phones. And I think that's one of the roles that you play, Jörg. And rather than collecting money from the end consumer, you actually work with a lot of the brands and agencies to mobilize their brands, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Thanks, Stefan. So I think there's been a shift in the past 2-3 years where the big brands, large global brands, are now actually really willing to spend or shift some of their budgets not only to digital but really to mobile. And we're helping these brands do that. So if you take a case in point, Mercedes-Benz were rolling out their mobile sites all across Asia. But not only that, they have iPhone apps for different games. They're building iPad apps. And that's just really enabling them to engage with their audience much, much closer and much, much better. I think that's really happening. If you look at the media owner side, we help a lot of the broadcast network and record labels do the same thing. And that's being very, very successful. And if you look at what happened to Lady Gaga, what she did, this is something that where people are really using every kind of screen to access that content, and it's been very, very successful.
I think one of the things that we've seen, at least, is if you look at all the stats that are out there, I think people actually spend about 80 minutes a day on their applications on their mobile phone. So very high engagement, right? And in fact, they'll actually download like 9 to 10 apps a month just to keep fresh. And how do you see the app world evolving? I mean, is an app going to be like the TV channel in the day of 500 TV channels that we've got? Are you seeing evolution there? And how does a brand stay relevant in that marketplace?
Yeah, I think apps are very, very hot right now. Not just iPhone apps, obviously Android's being very, very strong, especially in the US. I think there'll be always. It's never a question of black and white. There'll always be mobile sites. There'll always be apps for their particular purpose. Gaming apps that really need a lot of computing power will always be apps and won't be sites. But then if you have informational apps with some download capability, that could always be a mobile site. So there'll be they don't mutually exclude each other, and that's one of the good things. I think I read some statistic that about 60 or 70% of the apps downloaded are never used after the first month, and I think maybe 10 or 20% of the apps downloaded are never used at all. They're just downloaded. So that's where brands come in again and say, okay, how do you actually engage? Just popping an app into an app store isn't really going to help it. You have to advertise it, you have to market it, and if you do that well, and I think Michael Schneider knows how to do that from Mobile Roadie, then it'll work. But just developing it and putting it up there won't help.
So I think on one of the panels yesterday, I think it was the social media panel, I think as a lot of the advertising and media spend sort of starts to shift into the online world, one of the comments is don't expect social media to make a bad product good. I think you still need to invest in actually developing that product, and even if it's an app or a website, you need to make sure that it's user-friendly, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly. I think Facebook or Twitter are only a part of the equation. We're currently running a large campaign for a regional FMCG here, and it's a campaign where you take a picture and upload it, and people judge their best friends, and that has a large Facebook part in it. But the Facebook component isn't the only thing. So you have a mobile site, you have an app, you have a website, all being combined to have a really, really compelling equation there.
I think, Ralph, I'll come to you now, we saw a video up there earlier. So again, the enterprise market or the businesses, HP endorsing music artists, so getting much more involved in the entertainment industry. And then through that, leveraging that as to the capabilities that the internet have in going viral and distributing that digitally at a very efficient cost basis, that's also impacting the entertainment industry obviously as well. And I think you're trying to do some projects in that area, engaging enterprise as a means of populating and distributing content, right?
I'll give you a good example. We're currently working on a very interesting initiative for 2012 and 2013 with Madonna. Madonna, who's had such a successful career, wants to really have a much more global sense the next time she goes out with an album cycle and a touring cycle. She also understands now that in mobile there's a very, very important need for glocalization, colloquial relevance. So she's very interested in recording her material in local languages, going as far as thinking about recording in Bahasa, recording in Mandarin. And in fact, there's a company, I believe there's someone here at the conference this week, Robert Singerman, who's one of the world's great specialists in language translations, that will help someone like a Madonna have her music recorded in what we call the BRICA languages, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South America. So that's effectively Mandarin, Russian, Portuguese, Spanish, and Hindi. And we feel that this is the kind of thing that gets glocalization for a major artist, aligned with a brand. The artists like to be associated with a brand that is cool and hip. Not many get endorsement deals with Apple or with the iPad. 5 years ago, you too got that. But generally speaking, we find now that brands are much, much more receptive, provided you can have a really glocalized form of social media that is a kind of outer ring of Saturn of this idea.
And I think one of the things to that point that we've seen, particularly in the app world, is that if an app is in local language, if it's customized for the local environment, you get a 30% increase in local downloads in that specific market. So I think that's sort of another thing that we've been seeing. And the constant feedback that we hear, particularly from in some of the emerging markets from some of the operators, is not everybody has smartphones. But I think, Stephen, you're saying you're optimizing a lot of your services for these new phones that are emerging that are smartphones, sub $100. How are you coping with all of these different devices, and are you seeing an uptake? I think you were talking about your growth, you're getting larger adoption. Does it need to be a smartphone? Does it need to be a high-end device? And if so, how are these new high-end devices impacting your business?
I was going to say that there's a lot of talk on all the blogs about iPhone and Android transforming the mobile internet, and Nokia is much aligned when you read the trade press. But the fact of the matter is, if it's in China, Europe, just about every emerging market on the planet, Nokia has been, without a doubt, the major force for online access to hundreds of millions of people on the mobile internet. The #1 device out there for mobile internet access is, surprisingly, it's the Nokia N70, which I think went out of production about 2 years ago and was first manufactured in 2001. I just saw a presentation when I was in China just a month ago. We'll get Baidu's statistics, and things like the N70 still outstrips things like the iPhone and the entire class of all Android devices. Now, having said all that, there is this massive shift that is coming up right now, and it's extremely scary for anyone who's in mobile content, and that is the rise of MTK, the Chinese handsets, which are going for like 40 to 60. You're getting spectacular devices for $40 to $60, and they're iterating every 4 to 6 weeks. And $80 Android devices, including, like, I paid $600 for this HTC with a keyboard and the like. You'll be able to get those street price in places like Indonesia or India for like $120 as we enter the third quarter of this year. And that shift in computing power represents major challenges for organizations like us, and I think everyone in mobile. And it also changes the nature of app delivery, because I know we've had this talk about, sorry if I'm just rabbiting on, but up until recently we've been thinking about applications as being the new means for delivering services. Well, then the way that those applications get delivered, because the App Store for many of these devices is just crap. Actually, I was going to use the F word, but it's now social systems which are actually delivering these things, and I think this is a major disruption that's going on. MiG-33, we've had a history of always being able to work on a vast range of devices before. I think we'll rise to this next challenge, but I think for everyone in content, if it's traditional content developers or if it's other media assets, there is a major shift that's going on.
And just to expand a little bit on the kind of the non-iPhone, iOS, and Android space. So even in the market in Singapore, so if you look at our prepaid customer base, which is a lot of foreign workers, Bangladeshi, Indian, all using feature phones, some Nokia, some MTK, variety. But we're seeing one of the fastest growing parts of our business is pay-per-use data on prepaid. And that's being driven primarily by social networks. So there's a need by the Chinese immigrants, the Bangladeshi, the Indians, the Filipino, the Indonesians to connect with their networks back home. So they are on Facebook, they're tweeting, and we see that growth happening very rapidly and interesting.
They want content from there as well.
And they want content. So that was my next point. So we see internet radio as a huge opportunity. And during the Cricket World Cup, we saw huge increases amongst different ethnic groups, obviously those interested in cricket, accessing the internet via feature phones to get access to information about the tournament. So that's still a big space and a huge opportunity out here in Asia that gets lost in all the hype and excitement around apps on iOS and Android. So still a huge opportunity.
And I think on that, I mean, one of the things, I mean, if you just, I'm going to come back to you, Stephen, just do you build an app for all of these devices, or do you build a website for all these devices? And if so, what's the sort of proportion of access people use to get onto the MiG-33 social network?
So the way we think about it is that we build a thin real-time layer to go into the client. We're able to deliver real-time services, and it encapsulates a browser and the like, and we override a number of functions inside the browser so that it works with the general MiG-33 experience. And then we run most of it as services. We think of it as running services server-side. So when it comes to handset compatibility, rather than trying to load every application with a lot of functionality, the more functionality you load onto the client application, the greater the customization issues become across the vast sea of devices that are out there. So we try and keep it ultra light and keep it relevant for the device.
And you brought up a point that I want to address. Content is, so your business has shifted from ringtone business to all sorts of other content licensing, content portal management for operators, and now you just mentioned a comment that content is not being shifted directly to the mobile phone anymore, it's actually being shifted through social networks as people communicate. They want the content on those platforms. So are your customers shifting across to MiG-33 to make that content available to MiG-33 customers?
Well, I think they're expecting it to be there. They don't see any specific silo which they should jump into to get branded content versus their own content. So I think that MiG-33 is going to have to address that over time, where branded infusion comes into play. There's a small social community called Funbook in Indonesia, which is a mini Facebook, which is really a dumbed-down feature for the quality of phones they have in Indonesia. But they focus on, yes, having user-generated content communities, but they also put in the star pages, the fan pages. So they've got the best of both worlds in that. And they're paying for the data access as opposed to each individual picture or each individual download.
So I think we could go on here. I mean, I just want to open it up. I know we've got another couple of minutes or 10 minutes left, so I just want to open up to the audience if there are any questions. Have we got a mic that can go around? Does anybody have a question? Who's trying to sell content? Nobody.
Who's trying to consume content?
Oh, there you go. One person, okay. And how are you selling your content today? You're not selling it here? Okay.
I'm trying to sell it through the operator. I'm trying to sell actually content, bring Indian content into this region. Yeah.
Okay, so you're bringing content into the region.
On the mobile.
Well, I think you've got a partner here who you can work with.
We've already spoken, yeah, thanks. I mean, the other thing for me that's really interesting is certainly how Twitter has reinvented television, for example. I mean, the constant real-time commentary on branded, officially endorsed content. It's the best of both worlds, because you get the social media aspect, but you also get it in real time with the TV show. So you're actually enjoying both things simultaneously. And one thing is being monetized, kind of, and another one less so, but Twitter's working hard on trying to pull that in. And I had a conversation with Edward Boddington, who's the guy who runs the voting for American Idol, Ralph, you probably know him pretty well. And I said before this season, you've really got to do Twitter voting. You've really, really got to do it. It's going to be the greatest thing. And he just couldn't find a way of managing it because he was already working on the Facebook vote part for American Idol, which has seen the vote increase by 40%, which is quite significant. They did 60-odd million last time. So it's a really strong product. It's a really good product. It's a branded product, heavily sponsored. But at the same time, there's a massive social media following for that show. And now social media is being used to cast votes for that show. At some point, when they do want to charge for the votes, people will obviously be able to buy votes as currency, perhaps, and use it to vote for the show. So I think that's the perfect fusion of social media and branded media.
And you're doing a lot of work in that area at Singtel, connecting social components or the mobile with the internet and IPTV services. Are you seeing much more of an integration of social TV in terms of allowing chat whilst watching the Formula One, for example?
Yeah, so well, with our Mio Stadium, which is our fixed broadband offering, because there we have much more control over the user experience. There's an engagement platform that either within the Mio Stadium where you can comment about the race, or you can post onto Facebook. And another way in which we're integrating social and user-generated content into our F1 platform is, and by our mobile app, is via a component of the campaign which is called It's Your Race, and to set your own record. So we're encouraging Singaporeans to film themselves doing something exceptionally fast, whether that's eating a durian, stacking cups, running 1 kilometer or hopping on 1 foot, and allowing consumers to upload those, and hopefully we'll get some Singaporean world records by the time of the F1. So it's a different way of engaging consumers around the race in kind of a creative way, and allowing them to use their mobile to upload onto Facebook and onto our own F1 page, and then to comment and potentially even to co-create.
I think that's an interesting, and we were talking about it earlier, which, the digital world doesn't go without the real world. So you still need both. And I think the other thing that we were seeing, I had a picture up here earlier on of people using their mobile phone in a digital environment, in a real environment, but people still do read newspapers. So I had a picture of somebody in the room back there reading a newspaper, sitting back in the couch. So the physical world and the real world, or the existing world, is still relevant. And I think it's just a shift in terms of, I think you were talking about doing multiple things at the same time. So multiple, what's it, MPA, multiple potential attention or something. So that's an interesting evolution.
Absolutely, and I think what many people have maybe misinterpreted is that the lean back, lean forward experience. So TV traditionally has been a lean back experience, but as soon as you put a tablet in someone's hand while they're watching TV, what is it? Is it leaning forward? Is it leaning back? Because you're engaged, of course, in your community, whether it's Twitter, as Colin was saying, or on Facebook, and commenting on whatever you're watching in a lean back position. So there's a whole different level of engagement that's happening with multi-platforms.
And there's a company here that was up on stage yesterday as well, and they were building apps that sit on top of your TV screen. And in Spain, in Mexico, there's a company that actually developed, so you can SMS straight to the TV screen into that app and then have direct engagement from the mobile phone to a TV screen. So these models, and actually the operator there is actually encouraging that by giving 10% of the SMS revenue share to that developer. Which, so in order to encourage developers, again, coming up with interesting models.
So Stefan, based in Hong Kong, sort of everyone, in the year and a half that I've been here, I noticed that people in Singapore tend to look at the European and the North American case for leadership on mobile. Being based in Hong Kong, you must see a lot out of Japan and China. Do you have any experiences there to share with the rest of the panel and the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think Japan is a very different example. I think, Ralph was alluding to it before in the room where, everybody wants that Docomo model where it's simple, standardized, low revenue share, but high volume business. And in essence, it should be that platform. I mean, to be honest, do I care who owns the customer? Not really. As long as it goes over my platform and I can take a piece of the action over that and I can reduce the friction across the value chain. And to me, everybody still idolizes that model, tries to emulate that model, and I think it's just taking a lot longer to get to that model. It's a bit sad that Japan hasn't been able to export that model a lot faster. But I suppose...
Well, now that you've got Lauren working over there in Singtel, how about it?
No. Well, I think having come from different parts of the value chain, that's certainly something that we aspire to. I think it's a little bit oversimplified to say, well, who cares about who owns the customer if you get your cut? Because of course, in the end, any player in the value chain wants to have certain, maybe ownership is not the right word, but certain access to data. Because it's all about understanding your customer so that you could provide more value and upsell and cross-sell. And I think the challenge that the industry is facing now with iOS, with Android, is that a lot of the consumer data is being held by one party, and that doesn't necessarily give all people in the value chain the opportunity to understand how to deliver more value moving forward. So I think that's still a debate and a point of contention that needs to be resolved, even more so than the revenue share.
Well, I was just going to say, for me, because we're down at the end, I was just going to summarize. I think communication is entertainment. Entertainment drives audience, and audience is value. And that's just for all of us to really think about how that develops over time. Doesn't really matter, technology, handset, country, culture. We just need to work with that audience, engage that audience, make that audience happy, and bring them into the best of our ability. I think as an association, that's what we want to do.
And I think on that note, if there's I'll give it one last chance. No questions? I know it's 10 o'clock, 10:30, whatever. Anyway, thank you very much. I'd like to thank the panelists for their time coming here, sharing a lot of their insights. I think we had an awesome panel. And one thing is, the only constant is change. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the panel.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stefan.
For